Hello and welcome to the TES Secondary Maths Resource of the Week number 65 with me, Craig Barton. Now I'm going to start with a bit of a confession. Anytime my school organises some kind of whole school event like Citizenship Week or Community Week or Literacy Week, I adopt a bit of a sceptical response because I'm not a big fan of when they try to shoehorn maths into areas where maths doesn't really belong, in my opinion. However, having seen this resource, 1 to 10 in 7 languages, I'm very much tempted to go to my head and suggest we organise some kind of Maths and Languages Week just as an excuse to use this, because it's absolutely wonderful. And just in case you're thinking, well, we're not going to have a Languages Week, don't worry, because this is the kind of resource that's good enough to use all year round in all of your lessons. So it's been uploaded by That's My Boy, and it consists of 8 different Word files. And it'll be no surprise what's contained within these, because you've got here 1 to 10 in Hindi, 1 to 10 in Japanese, 1 to 10 in Kentish Old English, and so on. But let's take a look at the resource, because there's more to it than meets the eye. Firstly, you get a little README guide here, which suggests how you could use it. So get the students into pairs, each student has a card, and you've got to work out 1 to 10 for each of the given languages. But if I show you, for example, the Turkish one, you'll spot that it's not actually as straightforward as it sounds, because it's not simply a case that students get given, this is how you say 1 in Turkish, this is how you say 2 in Turkish, and so on. They actually have to do a little bit of working out to get it. So, for example, dort squared plus 1 equals 17. So you've got to solve a bit of an equation to figure out what dort actually is. 7 times iki, take 4 equals 10. I really hope I'm pronouncing these right. And if I show you the Hindi one, it gets even more complicated. Because, for example, look at this one. 5 times das equals sat squared plus 1. Now, without knowing what either das or sat is, you're not going to be able to work out the other. So you actually have to go back and, for example, try and solve that equation. And there's different levels of difficulty within each one. Now, how can we use this resource in lessons? Well, we can do exactly as the resource is intended and give this out as a bit of a paired exercise and get the students trying to figure out how to say 1 to 10 in each of these languages. Or we could do as a bit of a carousel activity where there's one of these, for example, the Hindi table, and kids get 5 minutes on the Hindi table to try and figure out 1 to 10 in Hindi before moving on to the Turkish table or the Kentish Old English table, and so on. And incidentally, Kentish Old English, absolutely mad language there. 5 times am plus 7 equals 12, and so on. So we could use it like that. But there's lots of other potential for this resource. Even if you just print it out and put it as posters up on the maths corridor or the language corridor, it's going to get people interested and talking about it, which I'm always a fan of, getting kids talking about mathematics outside the lessons. But then that got me thinking of how this could be used in other scenarios. And for example, topics like BIDMAS and algebraic substitution, where often you make use of small numbers, like numbers between 1 to 10. You could bring that into play there. So for example, what about a bit of a Kentish Old English lesson on algebraic substitution, where you say something like what's 2 lots of tn, or what's 4 squared over 3, and get the students to practice their substitution into algebraic terms, but give their answers in the language that you're asking for. Or the other thing I was thinking is we have a lot of English as additional language students in our school, and it's often fascinating to know a bit about them and the culture and the language and so on. And again, I'm not a fan of getting kids to stand up and tell us a little story about where you come from or something like that. But what about, say you've got a Polish speaker or someone from Serbia or something like that, get them to see if they can design something like this based in their own language, and then the students can all learn together in a fun and, crucially, in a useful and engaging way about where that student comes from. So lots of potential for what essentially looks a very, very simple, straightforward resource, but it's an absolutely wonderful resource. So there it is, 1 to 10 in 7 different languages, uploaded by That's My Boy. Give it a go and let me know how you get on. And I'll be back with a fresh resource of the week. Take care, and au revoir for now.